Welcome back, everyone. If you're new here, my name is Bryan Jenks, and today I'm going to be talking to you about how I study programming. There's a variety of approaches, and I think I've found some pretty good ones that might help you better learn how to code. So on my channel, I've talked a lot about spaced repetition, SRS, spaced repetition software, and Anki, Obsidian, and using these tools together for the purposes of learning, retaining information, all of that stuff, building and solidifying knowledge in your brain. And I made a very long video talking about Anki and Obsidian and spaced repetition options, the absolute state of spaced repetition in Obsidian. I'll put a card up there. I never know which side to point at. And I'm going to show you today, specifically, the approaches I use in both Anki and Obsidian to better learn programming and how to code. There's a variety of ways. One of my favorites is building projects, but today I have some approaches you might not have heard before that can leverage the power of these pieces of software to improve your learning. So if this is interesting, stay tuned. The best ways to support the channel are, if you're going to do it on an ongoing basis, GitHub sponsors because they take no fees, followed by Patreon. If you're going to do like a one-time thing, buy me a coffee, PayPal, or just fine. And if you just want to support me without any money involved, the best thing you can do is like, comment, subscribe, share the video, and that's it. All right, so the first approach I'm going to show you uses only Anki, but if you use it with Obsidian, you can also get some really cool features, all the things that come with using the Obsidian to Anki plugin that I've talked a lot about on my SRS and space repetition video. But jumping right in. So I have on the left Anki, and on the right a simple note in my vault that has the Anki syntax for the Obsidian to Anki plugin to basically create cards. But first, let me show you what's actually going to happen here. If I go to an empty deck, this is my JavaScript deck, which I have not had the time to really do much with. If I go to add a card, this is where you can also look at the types of cards you have available, choose which type of card you want to use, and then modify those card templates. So for instance, in my card templates I have primarily images, close deletions, and then some front and back stuff. But there's this one I actually made custom. This is my programming card. Now, what does that mean and what does that look like? So with the programming card, there's actually something really cool that you can do with Anki just by changing a single word. If I go to cards, this will actually open up the current card template that I have open up. So programming card, yep, there it is. So it's a one card, front plus back, and then all the stuff over here, the additional info, fields, all of that stuff is really just for the Obsidian to Anki plugin. Again, talked about that I've talked ad nauseum about it. So if you want to know more about that, go watch the SRS video, or the absolute state of space repetition, because we got these extras. So basically you can ignore 3, 4, 5, 1 and 2, front and back, but now how do we make this work? So on the front template, you see it says edit front, and then 2 line breaks with HTML, and then type back. So by actually changing the back field, because if this was something like the front and back, the basic card, just the basic front and back card, we can see that it says edit front, and then front side, hide the ID or the answer, and then edit back. So you can see this edit thing, edit front, edit back. And so when you do a front and back card, it just shows you those values. That's it. Now, what you can do with these programming cards that I made is that instead of you saying edit, if you change that to type, it'll say, okay, I'm expecting to see a particular value. You need to type it out. And then I will compare it and tell you how good you did. So this, even when I look at this, sometimes this becomes just a little hard to grasp just by looking at this, thinking okay, what is actually going on here? I don't really know. I have this styled with my own colors, so that's why it looks this particular way. If you want the CSS, drop a link in, or drop a question onto my FAQ repo. Link to that's in the description below. But feel free to ask if you want it. So what does this actually look like in practice? I need to see an example. So let's do that. If I was going to type out something, let's say, we're not going to make this programming yet, but let's say, what is your name? and then you can say, my name is, and then you could just basically leave for yourself a blank. Like, what is your name? The answer goes on the back, just like a front and back card. My name is Bryan. Okay, cool. So let's add that. Okay, we've added the card. So now there's a new card in this deck. Now if I click study, here's where this gets cool. What is your name? My name is blank. What's your name? You have to type it. Let's just say I spelled my name wrong like everyone else in the world seems to do. B-R-I-A-N, okay? Ah, it'll tell you, oh, you messed this up. This is the correct one, but you got all these green ones correct and all that stuff is right. Additional info, Obsidian context, all that stuff is unnecessary. That's part of the Obsidian to Anki plugin stuff you could take advantage of, but the important thing is that it shows you you got close, you didn't get it quite right, what you did right, what you did wrong, what you can do better next time. Now, how does this relate to programming? I'm sure you can already see it starting to make sense, but if you take this card, let's just say we go back to the JavaScript deck, okay? And you can see some examples over here. Now this is just, again, I'm not gonna spend too much time on this. We're sending it to the JavaScript deck, and I have two programming type answer cards. So it's the name of that card template. And I have a question here. You know, here's a code chunk. I actually styled it as a code chunk. And let's see here, we got the back, the answer, also styled. We'll see how that looks. We gave it a tag. You know, we gave it some additional info if we cared, and done. But let's also make a brand new one just to see this from scratch. So if I insert a brand new card, programming type card, we're going to say front, and we're going to do this one more time. So we're going to say, where are you watching this? Watching this from. And we could say, I am watching from my, and give it a blank. Okay, that's it. The back, let's just say, couch. And then additional info, we don't need it. Don't need tags. I don't know, YouTube. Cool, whatever, done, that's it. Okay, that's it. So now we have Anki open, we have Obsidian open. We're gonna sync it with the Obsidian to Anki plugin. Sync that. It will take a few seconds, and there we go, 3 new cards. One is the one I made in front of you. The other 2 are these 2. So now we're gonna study. What is my name? My name is Bryan. I got that correct. Great, that was easy. 4 days from now. Ah, here we go, the first one. Now this actually shows the syntax highlighting that came from Obsidian. So the syntax highlighting will carry over so we can actually see code highlighted. Awesome. I also have another plugin for Anki, if you care to ask me on my FAQ repo, that will actually let you edit these fields. So I could actually type something like var const test, whatever. It doesn't carry over, it looks like, a lot of the syntax highlighting, but you can actually edit fields if you wanted to. But what's important? Complete this code. Oh, okay. There's an ellipsis here. We could have just easily made it, you know, something sensible like a blank. Something my var, console.log my var. Okay. Well, what do we do to declare a variable? Now, if you're using old JavaScript, it would be var. Let's just make it up. Let's say let. Let is what we should use. Uh-oh, messed it up. Now I might say, I didn't get that piece of code right. I need to do it again later on. I messed it up. Ah, great. Whatever. Where are you watching this from? The couch. Ah, yes, there we go. Don't need that. Here's the context. It came from the workbench note. Cool. So you can see how this begins to become very valuable. Why is this valuable? Because there's a mixture of not only memorizing something, but understanding it. So Anki by itself is not great for understanding. It's great for solidifying things in memory, memorization. But trying to build memorization without a full foundation of understanding is, you know, like the parable, trying to build a house on a foundation of sand. It's going to fall down and collapse. So you need to understand what you're doing, learn it, actually understand it, then put it into Anki to solidify and retain that information that you now understand. But where this comes in handy is that now you're not just reviewing, remember, like flashcards, traditional, normal flashcards, but now you're mixing in another form of learning, kinesthetic. You are performing the action, a physical action, typing the code. And this is something that's actually going to be very valuable. for you, for me, probably for anybody who actually does write code, is actually having to write the code to get the answer correct. Now, it doesn't have to be like write a complete program to pass a flashcard. Like, this is just like little itty bitty things. Replace the missing pieces, kind of like close deletion, where you just remove one value but leave the context so that you have to active recall and guess that piece of information. So this is very useful because now I can just say var and I understand what I need to do. This solidifies in my memory things I've learned that in this case, I could make it a better example because var is not what you use. But I could say, make it a better example and actually type code and remember what I need to do for that code and go through the actions, solidifying visually and memorizing this, and then physically actually taking an action and typing out the code. Doing all these different forms of active recall, spaced repetition, and practice helps to solidify this in your long-term memory so that you might not have to review as much later on if you have to come back to some code later on. I do this with my C++ class notes, and I've retained a good amount of it, and it's been really, really helpful. Just a brief interruption before we continue with the content. If you were interested, I do have a monthly now newsletter where I talk about cool articles I've found, new concepts I've discovered, really great tools that I have added to my workflow, and it's kind of like the go-to place for all of the recent and up-to-date happenings of all the things that I'm doing. And also in this article, I talk about various other things like mental health or the videos that I'm releasing. And it's also just a good direct line of communication to have a conversation with me. I also will be talking about updates and releases for my upcoming product, Obsidian for Business, where I have several different tools and scripts and programs set up to facilitate the plain text life, but in a firewalled, protected Microsoft Office 365 environment. I use this in the government public sector workforce, so this could probably work for you. And if you are interested in that, my newsletter is the best place to get ahead of any of those news about it. And anybody who is a Patreon GitHub supporter, you will be the first to be able to beta test it, as well as you will get to use it and have it for free. So if any of that sounds interesting, sign up to my newsletter. The link to that is in the description and the pinned comment below. And let's get back to the content. All right, so if you're already excited based off of seeing that example, get ready for this one. I think this is a really cool way of bending Obsidian's functionality and aliases to your advantage. So I have a note and I kind of like a mock. It's a mock for a programming language. Now, normally mocks are not supposed to be comprehensive, but this is more factual information and less about ideas and dynamic, thinking and jumping around serendipitously. This is about actually retaining a comprehensive list of content I need to know, organize, and sift through and understand. So for instance, I'm taking notes on HTML tags. And if I go to this one right here, this is going to be the example I show you, is this template tag. I was reading an article by Web Dev Simplified, really great channel, really great guy. You should definitely check him out. And I was taking some notes on a blog post he did of the template tag and using this with, HTML, JavaScript, and all of that. So one of the things that I did, first off, just as an aside, not related to memorization and learning, is that I wanted to actually display an alias for the tag so that when in preview mode, you actually see something that looks like angle brackets, something that looks like an HTML tag. So to do that, I can't use angle brackets because those do not play nice with Markdown and Obsidian because they start trying to do some weird wonky stuff where it's actually trying to render HTML. So I grabbed these weird math text symbols and they work because they're basically just text characters, Unicode text characters, not angle brackets. So that's how I'm actually displaying this alias, and I have it mapped to a Alfred expand text snippet where I just type, tag. And now I have this thing in here and I can do template. There we go. And that's basically all I did for that. So that's just a cool little thing that I'm doing. And yeah, maybe you might find that interesting. So that way I can link HTML template tag, but then to actually display the tag itself. So I like it. So then we start getting into the cool stuff. Now, if I go through this, I'm just explaining to myself how to use the template tag, what to do, what it looks like, and then, whoa, what is all this? What is this mess? So this gets to something that I think is really, really cool. Now, I'll pop it on the screen. There was a video by Real Tough Candy, another person in the web dev space, who found a post by somebody else who's in the web dev space that is learning code line by line and basically just asking a question about every single little thing. You think that's a very simple and easy to understand way of going about it. Yeah, duh, yes it is. Ask a very simple question, what does that do? That's basically it. But I think, and at least for me, my own personal experience, is that when you just see a large chunk of text, you just kind of glaze over and you just, I don't even know where to begin with this. What do I do? What do you do? So, with that approach, looking at every single line of text, every text character, every little symbol, what does that do? What does that do? What does that do? That approach to granularly learning what each individual item, function call, method, name, piece of code does, you then gain a more holistic understanding of what is going on in the big picture by examining the small picture. And beyond just the simple basics of, yeah, you learn great by doing project-based learning, like build a project, understand all the things you need to do by just doing a project. Get invested, research what you need to make it work, and by doing that, you learn. Yes, but that doesn't mean that's the only way, the best way, or a way that does not need any sort of supplemental learning. So some people like to read books, some people like to just learn all the syntax first, and then explore different frameworks and packages and whatever. I take a variety of approaches, but I've really started to enjoy this one. Let me tell you why. So with this code in here, I've looked at all these different things and I basically tried to recreate the code down here. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm not doing this to be verbatim. I'm just basically just grabbing the portions that are unique and then listing them out here and then doing something really interesting. So we have const. Now if I hover over const, I actually have a note for the JavaScript const keyword. What does that do? And a little bit of a note about it. Okay, so then template equals document.getElementById. Okay, now when I go over here, document, oh, that's just the word document, but this is also a note. What's going on here? So each individual portion, this item, this method on this item, both are two separate things. I want to understand what each of them does, what they are, more about them. And so by doing this, I can hover over each piece of this code that I've recreated, just because I've recreated it, to say, pull out all the individual pieces that are unique, and then let me define them here and understand them. So one, I have to actually pick these apart, research them, put them into a note, and then link them here. And so by building this, and basically by going through all this focused effort, it's like building a project. You then learn because you're paying such close focused attention on something tangible and a chunk that you can just easily bite off. What does document mean here? Okay, now that I understand that, what does the .getElementById method do? Very simple, but you build up incrementally. And now by having these notes here like this, I can easily recreate this exact type of thing for any other JavaScript code I see and deal with. So as you build this knowledge base of notes that work like this, you can then start to see the definitions of the code just by hovering over it. Now, this might seem like a lot of effort. It probably is, especially more than what some people are used to. But to really solidify things, sometimes you do need to put in a little bit of extra work, and maybe this might not be the thing that you want to do. But I thought this was a really interesting and good practice to get a solid handhold on something as vast and complex as the web stack, which I'm currently spending a lot of time on because I'm really struggling to grasp it. There's a lot to know. So by doing this, I'm hoping to solidify my information and my knowledge in my brain, as well as with Anki and the approach I showed earlier. But by also doing this, I'm building up my own knowledge repository of things that I have used. So hopefully you find that helpful. And one other way this is actually also really helpful is that by doing this and spending the effort to build up your own knowledge base, this isn't like a recreation of the docs. Like if you're on, MSDN, I don't even know what that macro stands for, MSDN. If you're on the official document sources, those are the best sources because they are the official maintained documents. But what I like to use these types of notes for are not recreating the docs. That's duplicative work and unnecessary. What I like to do is something like, if I went to Python, let's say I haven't done anything with Python in a long time. I need to pick it back up because I'm going to do something with it soon. I'm actually going to be using it at work. So I actually need to know some stuff about Python. Well, it's been a while. I forgot a bunch of stuff because I don't actively use it and I don't use it a lot. So how can I do that? Well, if I go to something like I need to learn and relearn pandas, well, instead of having comprehensive documentation about pandas or getting lost in the official docs, I can just see some quick examples that I've given myself and some explanation of them about what these different things in the pandas library or module do. And with this, I can quickly just pick it right back up, like, okay, these methods, those, okay, and get done what I need to do. It's not about recreation of a comprehensive documentation of, X, Y technology. It's about what can I tell myself in a way that I know I best receive information and understand it in examples that I understand perfectly to then pick it up easily later on with minimal effort and headache. It's not about recreation. It's about how can I make myself remember a lot easier through examples that I myself easily understand. And that's it. So hopefully you found this video interesting. I'm curious, what do you do to better learn programming besides project-based learning, which I am a big fan of, but I want to know what other sort of cool practices do you do to better learn code? Let me know in the comment section below. So hopefully you found this video interesting, maybe slightly informative, and maybe these practices will help you better learn to code if that is your goal. These practices can also probably be applied to a variety of different contexts and different mediums of what you want to learn, so hopefully some of this is helpful. Let me know your thoughts. I'd love to hear it. And before we go, a quick message and thank you to the sponsors and patrons who support this channel both on GitHub and Patreon. Thank you very much for your support. None of this is ever required, mandated, or expected, and it's just really nice when people love the work that I'm putting out here and show their appreciation through their support. And yeah, thank you very much. That said, I will catch you all in the next one.